Let me tell you something about Trisha that has the entire city of Huntsville buzzing like bees in a shaken hive. This isn't just your everyday gossip. This is the kind of story that has people whispering in church pews, replaying conversations at the grocery store, and passing tidbits around at the barbershop like it's breaking news. Why? Because Trisha might be moving pieces on the board while everyone else is still arguing over the rules. While others are busy playing checkers, she's quietly setting herself up for a high-stakes game of chess. The divorce? Done. Marquez? Officially out of the picture, at least on paper. But don't let that fool you, because the real storm, the one that has the power to shake up not just her household, but the whole town's perception of her, is only beginning to swirl. And right there in the middle of it all is Ken, a man who once looked like her steady partner, but is now starting to resemble something closer to a pawn. When the judge signed off on Trisha and Marquez's divorce, most people thought that was the end of the drama. You know how it goes. Sign some papers, divide up assets, make a custody arrangement, and go your separate ways. But no, this was no standard courtroom decision. This judge didn't just rubber stamp the paperwork. They came in swinging with conditions so specific and so restrictive that it had people blinking twice when the details leaked. Trisha walked away with primary custody of their daughter, which wasn't all that surprising. She's been the more stable parent in the public's eyes, at least compared to Marquez, whose reputation has been rocky for a while now. But what raised eyebrows was what Marquez walked away with, or rather what he walked away without. To even have a chance at overnight custody, the man has to clear 3 consecutive drug tests, secure an apartment with utilities in his name, and prove he's financially and emotionally stable enough to provide a safe environment. This isn't your average custody stipulation. This is the court saying loud and clear, we don't trust your situation and you've got to earn our trust back. And if you thought Marquez was the only one feeling the weight of those legal conditions, think again. Trisha herself wasn't exactly given a free pass. The court slapped her with one of the most unusual clauses people in Huntsville have ever seen. She is not allowed to have any romantic partner living with her unless she's legally married to them. This isn't just a suggestion, not some gentle warning. It's a binding court order with a deadline. And suddenly, everyone's attention turned to Ken, the man who has been in Trisha's life for years, always lingering in the background, steady but never fully secure. Here's where things take a turn that could rival any reality show script. Word on the street, and let's be honest, in a town like Huntsville, the streets talk louder than any official statement, is that Ken has practically been living at Trisha's house. Not permanently maybe, but enough to make it obvious. 3 weeks in, 1 week out, back again the next weekend. He might call it visiting, but to an ex-husband like Marquez or to a skeptical judge, it looks a whole lot like cohabitation. That detail matters because of the court's order. If Ken was still living there after 5 o'clock in the evening on August 25th without a marriage certificate tying him and Trisha together, that's a direct violation of the ruling. And with that kind of violation, the court could step in again, shaking up custody arrangements, imposing new restrictions, or even revisiting who gets control of the child's environment, which puts Ken in an impossible position. Either he steps up and marries Trisha, solidifying his place in her life legally and publicly, or he packs his bags and leaves her home behind. But here's where it gets complicated. Trisha isn't rushing down the aisle. For years, she leaned on the excuse that she couldn't marry Ken because she was still legally bound to Marquez. That excuse had weight. After all, bigamy is not exactly a good look, especially on camera. But that excuse evaporated the second the ink dried on her divorce papers. And yet, despite the freedom to marry, Trisha remains hesitant. She's not sending out invitations, she's not planning ceremonies, and she certainly isn't walking down any aisle. Which makes people wonder, was it ever really about the paperwork? Or has she been using the marriage excuse as a convenient way to keep Ken close without having to fully commit? Ken, on the other hand, is starting to look like the guy who hasn't noticed the party is over. He's loyal, dependable, and for years, he's been there through Trisha's ups and downs. But loyalty has a cost, and lately, it's starting to show. His friends have noticed it. His conversations have taken a different tone. Doubt is creeping in, slowly but surely. He's confiding in people like Will, asking if maybe he's been ignoring signs, if maybe he's been pouring his heart and time into a relationship where the return on investment just isn't there. From the outside looking in, it's painful to watch because Ken clearly loves Trisha, or at least he's deeply attached to her. Maybe it's loyalty, maybe it's history, maybe it's hope. But love with conditions starts to feel more like employment than a partnership. And lately, Ken's role is looking a lot like a job he never officially signed up for. He's financially invested, emotionally invested, and publicly tied to Trisha. But when the subject of marriage comes up, Trisha dodges like a quarterback under pressure. The silence, the awkward glances, the quick changes of subject, it all adds up. And you don't need to be a mind reader to know that Ken feels the sting. What makes it all worse is that cameras are rolling through every beat of this drama. Every hesitation, every uncomfortable silence, every moment where Ken's affection is met with indifference, it's all being documented for the world to see. To the public, Ken might look calm, collected, smiling through the tension. But behind that steady exterior is a man doing mental gymnastics, trying to reconcile the love he feels with the reality he's living. His pride, his dignity, his very sense of self is being tested, and the cracks are beginning to show.
I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. Because you're not going to try to make it seem like you're the problem.
No, you're the
okay, and I'll be it. It.
And just when you think things couldn't get more tangled, Marquez starts making moves of his own. For a man the court clearly didn't trust, he's suddenly trying hard to change the narrative. He submitted his first clean drug test, started paperwork for a new apartment, and is putting on the image of a responsible father who wants back into his daughter's life. To some, it looks like genuine growth, a man trying to clean up his act for the sake of his child. To others, it looks like strategy, a carefully calculated move to get under Trisha's skin and remind Ken that his position as man of the house is far from secure. And let's not forget the possibility that Marquez had a hand in shaping that unusual court ruling. People around town are whispering that he went into that courtroom ready to lay out his concerns about Ken. Concerns about instability, about an unofficial stepfather figure in his daughter's life, about what he called a risky environment. Whether the court believed him fully or not, the result speaks for itself. That no live-in partners unless married clause has his fingerprints all over it. Even without winning custody, Marquez managed to leave his mark on Trisha's household, creating tension that continues to ripple outward. And here's another twist that shifts the story in a dramatic way. As part of the court's ruling, Trisha's daughter is now completely off limits for filming. No names, no images, no storylines. She is shielded from the cameras, which for Trisha is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it protects her child from being dragged into messy, public storylines. On the other, it eliminates one of Trisha's strongest narrative threads on the show. The co-parenting drama, the custody arguments, the emotional tug-of-war that kept viewers hooked. With that storyline cut off, the entire focus shifts to the adults, Trisha, Ken, and Marquez. And suddenly, every glance, every decision, every fight, every awkward silence is front and center. There's no buffer anymore. For Ken, that spotlight feels like pressure. Without the child dynamic to distract or soften the edges, every conversation about commitment, every dodged question, every shift in Trisha's tone stands out louder and clearer. He's nearing his breaking point, and the public can see it. For Trisha, the shift is equally intense.
She's used to being in control, used to steering the storyline, used to making the rules. But now the court's ruling has stripped away her ability to do as she pleases. Either she marries Ken, closing off her options, or she loses the comfort of his presence in her home. It's a choice she never expected to face this soon, and it has her spiraling in ways she can't fully conceal. The tension in Trisha's house is practically a character of its own now. You can feel it in the way she avoids eye contact when marriage comes up, in the way she redirects every time Ken mentions future plans. For years, she's been able to set the pace, to keep Ken close enough to hold, but far enough away to keep her options open. But the court has changed the rules of the game. And with the cameras rolling, there's no hiding the fact that the walls are closing in. Ken's friends have started pulling him aside, giving him the kind of advice he probably doesn't want to hear, but desperately needs. They're telling him what others have been too polite to say, that maybe he's fighting too hard for someone who isn't truly fighting for him. That maybe he's investing in a future with a woman who only wants to rent, not own. And deep down, he hears them. He feels the truth in their words. But walking away doesn't feel like an option. Not for a man like Ken, who prides himself on loyalty, on sticking things out, on never quitting, even if the promise he's holding on to was never really made. So here we are, standing at a crossroads with no clear path forward. Trisha is caught between control and commitment, between comfort and finality. Ken is caught between loyalty and dignity, between love and self-respect. And Marquez is lurking on the sidelines, making moves that may be more about strategy than sincerity. The biggest question is, what happens next? Does Trisha cave to the pressure and marry Ken, even if it's just for optics and convenience? Does Ken finally get the courage to put his foot down, refusing to play the role of placeholder any longer? And Marquez, does he truly rise up as a responsible father, or is this just another phase in a long game of manipulation? One thing is certain. In a town like Huntsville, where everyone watches, everyone whispers, and nobody minds their own business, these answers won't stay hidden for long. The drama will spill out one way or another. And when love, legal rulings, and reality TV collide, the fallout is always explosive. Someone always walks away broken, and someone always walks away whole. The only question left is, who will it be this time? So what do you think? Is Trisha really playing chess? Or is she just stalling while the pieces crumble around her? Will Ken finally get the commitment he's been waiting for, or will he realize he's been standing in place all along? And Marquez, is he truly on the path to redemption, or just stirring the pot from the sidelines? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because in Huntsville, the drama never sleeps.